Go ahead,
Hey,
Commissioner.
good morning, everyone. Hey, good morning, everyone. This is Commissioner Eccles, and we're focused today on Canton, Georgia, up in Cherokee County. Canton and the entire county, they've been growing like mad up there. I live over on the northeast part of the metro, and maybe folks that are, in South Georgia, they've never really had an opportunity to get up to Canton, but it's a fantastic community, the whole county, and we've got the city manager, Billy Peppers, that's going to be with us today. We've got our good citizen, Chris Lambert, retired Cherokee County school teacher, and we're going to show you some really cool murals and talk about what's going on there. Our human trafficking spotlight today is with Meg Rogers, the executive director of the Cherokee Family Violence Center. And then for our clean energy segment, we've got my friend Andrew Richards, and he's with Electrify EVSE, and he's got a very cool product that he's going to be showing you. And we're going to get to see it in person next week at Jekyll Island at the Georgia Energy Conference. And with that, I'm going to turn it over to my assistant, Faith Henning. I'm in Savannah, heading over to Gulfstream today. I'm camped out on the Wi-Fi at Savannah Tech, which is we need to get them some more money for this Wi-Fi, I think. But Faith, take it away.
All right. Good morning, everybody. I'm so happy to have y'all with us. I'm going to go ahead and move everybody except for Billy into the green room so that we can talk to Billy about economic development and what's happening in the city of Canton. Tell us some good news, Billy.
Sure. So for those people who are not familiar with Canton, as the commissioner was saying, we're in Cherokee County. We're the county seat. We had about 7,000 residents of Canton in the year 2000. And we expect when the census data comes out later this year, we'll be almost at 31,000. So we have a lot of growth in the last couple of decades. And with rooftops comes economic development.
Mm-hmm. Tell us about some of the projects you guys are working on in Canton.
Some of the big things we've been working on, we have some industries that have been here for a number of years. Universal Alloy Corporation is one. They manufacture wing parts for Boeing and the airline industry, and they continue to invest in our community. Northside Hospital Cherokee just built a replacement hospital here that went live a couple of years ago, and it continues to expand. In fact, they will open up 2 new floors of the hospital this year, putting them at 10 floors. And in just that one tower. So they're looking forward to opening another 80 beds in the hospital here this year. So healthcare is a big deal for us. Downtown development is very important for us. Canton as a city was formed in 1834, so we have a lot of historic buildings. In the last 3 years, we've had about 500,000 square feet of historic space rehabbed in our downtown. I challenge you to find any other city in the state that can give that number. One of the big projects is the mill on Etowah. It was a former Canton denim mill that was purchased by Penhodge Properties, and it now houses Reformation Brewery, Thrive Co-working Space, ClickFunnels, a salon, several restaurants. It's a great mixed-use project. It'll be adding some multifamily components as well. And then on an annual basis, we do about 450 new single-family home permits a year in the city. So we're adding residents constantly. Great school district, great healthcare, lowest tax rate in Cherokee County, probably in the region at 5.4 mils. So we've got some great things going on.
So if I were a tourist coming up to Canton, what would be the must-see, must-do, must-eat?
Oh, absolutely. So our city is cut in half by the Etowah River, which flows into Lake Allatoona. And it's a beautiful, piece of our community. We have river trails that connect all of our city parks along the Etowah River. So if you like to go out for a jog, if you like to go out for a run, by the end of next spring, we'll be finished with our last section of trail. You'll be able to do a marathon without touching a roadway, just on trails. You can float down the river. You can float down the river and get off at Reformation Brewery and have one of the local beers down there. As it relates to restaurants, gosh, you're going to put me on the spot and pick one. My favorite is Downtown Kitchen. That's because I had my first date with my wife there about
Oh,
years ago, so I have to say that one. If you're going to go there, you need to get the hanger steak and a good Caesar salad. That'll set you up for a good meal.
awesome. That sounds good. See, and nobody can be mad at you for choosing that because it's sentimental to you.
That's right.
All right. Well, Billy, I'm going to pull in Chris Lambert, and I want to have you guys on at the same time so y'all can talk about, Billy, you can talk about the Railroad Street mural from the city perspective and kind of how that was conceived. And then we'll go to Chris to actually talk about the process of putting that together.
Sure. So Railroad Street kind of sits between downtown and the mill on Etowah, and it is named after the railroad that is beside it and some railroad warehouses. About 15 years ago, the city went through a streetscape project on that street to add some pedestrian abilities, but there was this very long, short concrete wall between the street and the warehouses on the other side. We had a newly elected councilwoman, Ms. Brooke Schmidt, who really wanted to see the city focus on more public art. And she went after a grant with the Georgia Council for the Arts and got it. And we went through a process to select artists to do a mural on that particular wall. And Chris and all of her fine team put together what I think is probably the most unique mural in the state of Georgia. It's not just a piece that you look at and you say, hey, that's different. It's a piece that tells the history of our community and talks about the diversity in our community, but it also adds color to what was once kind of a forgotten area of town. And so we couldn't be more thrilled with the project and with the work that Chris and her team did.
Awesome. Thanks, Billy. I actually have some pictures of the mural. So what I'm going to do is, Billy, I'm going to drop you back and we're going to focus on Chris for a minute. And Chris, I'm going to screen share these pictures while you talk about the process of actually painting this mural. And so like Billy said, my understanding is this is a real short wall, right?
It's about 3.5 feet tall, but it is
tell us about
540 feet long.
Gotcha. So that's a little bit better perspective of the size of this mural. So tell us about how your team came together. How did you find these artists?
Well, Shanna Coulter, who was my companion art teacher at Cherokee High School, she and a couple of us initially saw the call for bids for this mural. And I was on my way out and retiring that year. And I think at that point, Shanna, asked about it, and we all go, yeah, we'll do it if we can all get together and do it together. So it was basically all the art teachers, high school art teachers in Cherokee County. And we got together, and Shanna's the one that immediately came up with the idea of the perspective on this wall. As you will note, there are mostly from like the waist down people in this mural. And the creative thought on that was we could demonstrate the diversity, the history, major events throughout this time period through the perspective of the people that were in Canton at that time.
I think that's fascinating. Such an interesting perspective. So tell us about the process of selecting. So where did we start on the mural? What time period did we start in? And how did you select what events or what people to portray?
Well, it starts with our rendition of a saber-toothed tiger in prehistoric times.
So all the way back.
all the way down to the far left-hand side. And that one section is in color. Then it immediately turns to black and white on anything but the background. And that was to
So this
reflect
section that we can see right here, this is in black and white.
just to the far left it is. The thinking was, if you had a photograph of that time period and the people in it, it would be black and white. Now, the photographs we used as references came from multiple sources. The Historical Center was pivotal in getting us specific time periods. We also went through the Cherokee High School yearbooks as far back as they would go. Once we got started, we actually had the community interacting with us. Some folks would come by and start telling us, "Oh, my granny's got this picture hanging on her wall. Can you put it somewhere in there?" And we'd say, "We'll bring it down here and let us take a look at it." Well, goodness, they would bring like a 16 by 20 photograph enlarged and framed and under glass. And we're like, whoa, 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 we just need a digital image of this. So we had some community input, but we basically had a binder full of pictures that we had garnered in that way and put them in sequential order and kind of just went through each. It's kind of divided up into sections of concrete, like you can see right there between those two posts and that rail on top. That is like, it's, if you will, maybe a Lego piece, and they're just snapped together. So each of those sections, I think was, I don't know that it was 25 feet, but it was, maybe 5 or 6 feet, maybe 10.
Right.
And so each of those would be like a decade.
Oh, that's fascinating.
Yeah.
So how did you were telling me when we did our sound check earlier, you're telling me the story about one of the last people who was put in to the mural was the community shoe shine.
Yeah, Mr. Moss. I always called him Mr. Moss, but it was Billy Moss. I worked with his wife, Ruth, at Cherokee High School, and they are just a beloved couple. Billy Moss was probably the only cobbler I ever knew, but he could fix anything that was leather here in Canton, and it was such an anomaly to have him. And his dedication to keeping up the craft was just outstanding. It did happen that he passed away towards the end of our working on this, and there's a beautiful photograph series that I think it was Sean King, maybe I could have that name wrong, but that he did of Mr. Moss, that it was almost like a Caravaggio painting, where it had the dark areas and this figure would just kind of illuminate out of that. And so we put Mr. Moss right there at the end of the timeline.
I love how involved the community got in this project. I just think it's amazing how it came together and kind of brought the community together. But it's also a tourism attraction, right? To beautify that area, and also something that people can come see.
Yeah. We had people, I was thinking this morning about a gentleman that he was elderly and he was in a wheelchair, and his healthcare provider, like assistant, brought him out in his wheelchair and rolled him down that wall. And they were talking about the different, and so it was a source where he could remember back to when he was a young boy living in this community and saw things that were familiar to him.
I think that's amazing.
Yeah, and we had people from like the 70s. I think I was telling you about, there's a old truck and there's 3 girls sitting on the hood with their legs crossed, and we saw this pile of cars come in and these women all bailing out at the water department parking lot, and came across the street and they were running up and down the wall, and then one of them said, "Here we are." And they were looking for themselves because they had heard that they were in that wall from somebody else that saw it. But it was the 3 girls together, still here in Canton, and they sat on that wall and had their pictures taken with the painting of themselves in high school. So it was just fun that way.
That's so cool. what a unique way to bring the community together after the year that we had last year. I just think it's fantastic. Well, Chris, thank you so much for coming on with us and telling us about that. I'm going to go to Meg Rogers. I'm going to add her in here so that we can stay in our time limit. And we're going to talk about the Cherokee Family Violence Center and the work that they do in Cherokee County. So Meg, go ahead and tell us a little bit about the Cherokee Family Violence Center and what kind of services you all provide.
Sure. Happy to do that, and thank you for inviting me. So the Cherokee Family Violence Center is a private nonprofit organization that works with victims of domestic violence. So we were incorporated in 1986 and grew from an all-volunteer organization to now we're an organization that has 33 staff people. We provide emergency shelter for victims of domestic violence. We provide a 24-hour hotline in both Spanish and English. And in fact, we do the Spanish hotline for the entire state of Georgia. Wow. Based on the expertise of our multicultural department, we were awarded that grant from the state. We have a legal program where we assist victims with domestic violence with protective orders, go to court with them. And then we have a multicultural department that works primarily with the Hispanic community, but also basically with anyone who has limited English proficiency. So we have worked with victims from 88 countries from around the world.
Wow.
So we have a children's program that works with children in our shelter and also in our housing program. So we have a housing program that is actually the largest in the country, located here in Cherokee County. We have 72 apartments. So right now we currently have like 151 children, 72 women who can stay in a income-based rental program, supportive housing for up to 3 years.
Wow. Now, I know that a lot of times domestic violence shelters have to limit the age of children coming in with their parent or with their mom. So if a woman has like a teenage son, a lot of times it's hard to find emergency housing for them because a teenage boy is not allowed in most domestic violence shelters. So would a mom with a teenage son be able to use your housing program there?
Sure. We don't have any criteria that would eliminate safety for a family based on the age of their children. So we would never want a mom to have to choose between her child and her safety.
Right.
So, but it wouldn't be unusual for an older teenage boy, especially, to have taken on characteristics of the abuser in the household. So if they come in and they become violent or then we would offer them safety in a hotel.
Gotcha.
So
to keep the rest of your residents safe.
Right. Exactly.
Right. So what are some of the other emergency services that you provide? I saw that you guys provide financial assistance. Tell me a little bit about those services.
Right. So not everyone wants to come and shelter. In fact, most people don't. It's kind of the last resort. So we work with also other nonprofits in the community to, but specifically if they've experienced domestic violence. So they may need help paying their rent or utilities. Maybe they've left or want to leave and they just need financial assistance to move. So we kind of evaluate each situation, and while we don't have a lot of money around financial assistance, we often partner maybe with Must Ministries or other churches. But the idea from our perspective is how can we make this family safe? And we don't want them to have to be in danger just because they don't have money.
Right. So we always spotlight human trafficking on this show.
Mm-hmm.
And while trafficking and the risk factors for trafficking are a very complex issue,
Right.
We do know that childhood traumas, including domestic violence as a child or childhood sexual abuse, which often go hand in hand in these families, that is a risk factor for being trafficked later on in life. And so what are the ways that y'all are able to address mitigating those risks for children who are involved in domestic violence later on in their lives?
Sure. So let me just share just a minute about, so the trafficked victims that we see are often coming from Central America. We also have done mail order brides from Southeast Asia, Russia, excuse me. And but they have been trafficked sometimes by the coyotes who have assisted them coming. Sometimes their village in Central America, Guatemala, even their family may have sold them. So we do deal with adult trafficked victims in Cherokee County. What we see when it comes to the children, it's not, of course, I'm sure you've said this before, it's not like snatching them on the sidewalk, it's not taken. What we see is children who've grown up in abusive or trauma, with a lot of trauma, are just more vulnerable to being exploited. So
boundaries are not healthy.
Boundaries can be shattered. So especially if they were sexually abused in the home, and so therefore sex has different meanings for them. Accessing it has different parameters. So while they may join or meet someone who feels like they're giving them the support that they need, and then get into a situation that they can't get out of. So we work with moms around understanding the dangers of children who may be becoming disenfranchised for their moms, which you see oftentimes when there's been abuse. And then we also work with our teenagers and our middle school kids that live in our housing program to talk about what healthy relationships are, about firming up boundaries, valuing themselves, being able to say no and be comfortable, so that to try to mitigate some of those factors that do make them vulnerable to gangs, to also to men who want to exploit them, or even to boyfriends who will then sexually abuse them.
The Romeo type of trafficker. So Meg, what are some ways that the community can help the Cherokee Family Violence Center?
So, well, financial support is always needed because we have way more need. We're at 122% of capacity to get.
Wow.
And our shelter is always full. We put people in hotels. We have a 6 to 8 month waiting list to get into our apartments. So the need is much greater than the resources we have. But also just volunteering. So they can go to our website at www.cfbc.org and find out ways to volunteer, whether it's mentoring to the children or tutoring to the children or babysitting. Sometimes people come in and cook at our emergency shelter so that the women don't have to cook while they're tending to their children. So there's just a myriad of ways that people can become involved.
Awesome. Thank you, Meg. And we do have your website scrolling across the bottom there for people to see.
Perfect.
Thank you so much for what you do in the community, and thank you for coming on with us today.
It's a pleasure.
All right, we're going to bring Andrew in, and he is going to be our clean energy segment today. And Andrew, I have a PowerPoint I'm going to run for you. So let me go ahead and pull that up, and then you can run through your PowerPoint and tell us about Electrify EVSE.
Great morning, everyone. As Faith said, my name is Andrew Richard. I am the CSO and co-founder of Electrify EVSE. So Electrify EVSE, we do electric vehicle charging nationwide. We install, service, maintain, and offer electric vehicle charging. So all those chargers that you see in the ground, there's a good chance that our group here, just from Canton, Georgia, was involved on it. So we actually are, what's important is trying to get this infrastructure in the ground and making sure that charging is available for people on roadways while they're testing new vehicles, at seminars, similar to what the commission and I are doing next week at the conference at Jekyll Island for the energy commissions. But this charger here, this is a electric vehicle charger that is a DC fast charger, which means that it charges you fast. We have 100 kilowatt, a 50 kilowatt, even level 2s on it. So what we can do with this is, you can place this at a job site. You can place this if you're testing vehicles, and it runs on propane or renewable propane, or even natural gas or compressed natural gas or renewable natural gas. And the idea of that is to reduce that carbon footprint, right? So people do try to dog the idea that, hey, where are you getting that power for that electric charger? You're getting it from the grid, right? Where's that power coming from? Well, there is an aspect that we want to look at and make sure that we're reducing the carbon footprint. And using this power pod allows you to really start looking at a reduction, not only in the energy that's being used, and making sure that if there's a blackout or a brownout, or if there's an emergency, similar to down in Texas. And
Mm-hmm.
Texas has a lot of electric vehicles, and when they had that big freeze, they didn't have any electricity. Where are they going to get their charging, right? So this is designed for that evacuation purpose. It's so that we can bring these down with our co-ops, with our electrical providers and our electricians, and our power line gentlemen that are and women that are working all over the country and expedite themselves. They can bring this with them. They can set this up at a designated location, a pop-up location. And we can make sure that we're getting these vehicles, people that are driving electric vehicles, we can get them out of that severe area.
That's fantastic. That I've never seen the mobile charging ability. That's very cool.
Well, you do see them out there, but they're using diesel generators. They're using diesel gas, right? That's kind of a mishit, in my opinion. And they're not even using clean, renewable diesel, right? So, this is the opportunity that they have to try to go a little cleaner. If you go to the next slide, you can see some more of the pictures. I mean, we really did a great job outfitting this machine.
That's fantastic. So tell us a little bit about the installation and infrastructure considerations.
Exactly. Great question. So there is no infrastructure and consideration for having to put in the electrical lines or anything like that. Once you make this opportunity available to you, it takes about 5 minutes. We pull onto your location, we start it up, the generator begins, and you can start charging. So we actually do put in infrastructure nationwide. And with the evidence that we had recently over the last year with the virus, it's taking months and years for people to get their electric vehicle charging systems going. So we know that big companies are moving to electric vehicles. How are they going to, get that infrastructure in if it's taking such a long time? This is another opportunity for them to say, hey, we can get these electric vehicles in, these last mile delivery vehicles, these Amazon vehicles, the new Volvos, the Class 8 vehicles that are coming. This will charge all of them. And they can get it on site immediately, not have to worry about permitting, not have to worry about, making sure that the electrician knows what he's doing. And it really does save cost. You don't have to worry about all those other integral parts of boring and trenching, although we do it. But ultimately, if you're trying to get your fleet over to electric quicker and start saving the money that an electric vehicle does compared to a conventional gas vehicle or a diesel vehicle, this might be an opportunity for you.
Awesome. And you've covered some of this. Why would you choose this mobile option versus something that's put into the ground, the infrastructure that's put into the ground?
Great question. So ultimately, it's not meant to replace infrastructure for your fleet, but what it does do is allows you the opportunity to send this vehicle out. Let's say you have a new fleet, you have new drivers, people have never driven electric before, they're not familiar with how much range they actually have. Well, if you've got your vehicle out there and you have infrastructure in your ground behind your office, and that vehicle is out in the field, how are you going to get that charged? So this is that portable aspect for you. It also covers resiliency, right? What if we have a power outage? What if you have 15 vehicles in your fleet that are all electric and the power goes out in the middle of the night? This will get them charged up to at least be able to make their first calls. And then you can also take it back out into the field and give them an opportunity to charge and continue their day.
Awesome. And then these I see are some examples of fleet vehicles that would be serviced by your technology.
Absolutely. Yep. Every type of vehicle that can be charged, every electric vehicle can be charged with this, with the power pod. So Teslas, they use an adapter and in coordination with one of the cords called the CHAdeMO cord. But ultimately, there's no demand charges on this charger. What we see with the DC fast charging out in the field is, there's a demand charge to have 100 kilowatts of power available for someone to charge. So that owner of that charger has to compensate ultimately their ROI or ultimately their investment. And that gets pushed out when they have an excess of electric charges just to run the machine.
Right. That's fascinating. I love the redundancy, especially like you mentioned, what we saw with Texas, and the ability to safeguard your function with the delivery trucks. And I think that's incredible technology. And I also wanted to mention, you told me that you also work with Keep Cherokee Beautiful,
Absolutely.
and do some cleanup in the community. And Commissioner Eccles had to hop off. He has a meeting that he had to get to, but he just did a trash pickup organized in Atlanta, around the Capitol. He did a trash pickup that he and some guys came up with the concept of doing this to get the homeless community around the Capitol engaged in and invested in keeping that area clean. And he took some friends of his and some trash bags and orange vests and a roll of $10 bills, and asked some folks who were on the street if they would be interested in filling a trash bag for $10. And he had a trailer full of trash bags by the time he got done with that. And they all mentioned how invested, they were after that in keeping their community clean in the area that they live.
You're exactly right.
I just think that that's so important, just keeping, it's an investment in our communities to keep them litter free.
Yeah, so we do. I sit on the board with the Keep Cherokee Beautiful. We recently have organized within the last year, just before COVID hit. And what it does is obviously we're working with the community. We do the Adopt a Mile program, where if you're a company out there and you want some free advertising, really, we ask you that we make a commitment of 4 days a year. That's all it is. 4 days, about 3 hours on that. We supply everything. We have, we work with, we work with the recycling center here in Cherokee, and we make sure you have all your pickers. We make sure you have all the vests, and we even come and clean up after you in association with the county. So it is a great opportunity for people that in a small family, with COVID, that keeping people indoors. There's an opportunity for you to do something with your family. We try to do an event as often as possible. We did do a 6-mile stretch from Hobgood Park all the way to the Little River Bridge. And we had over 35 people come on out, and it was really a great time. I also sit on the chairman of the Going Green Committee here in Georgia, here at Cherokee County, through the Chamber of Commerce, and I work with Pam Carnes and all the wonderful people over there. And we're just trying to make sure people understand that you have the recycle and the reuse, and just try to keep things tidy, keep things clean. In coordination with Keep Cherokee Beautiful, If we can keep it off, if we can get it off the street, it's not going to get in our waterways, right?
Right.
And I also volunteer and I work with the testing community. So I test the waterways, the Canton Creek over here, over by that runs right by the mill. So, really engaged in the community. It's beautiful here. Cherokee, it's the gateway to the mountains, really. There's actually a lot of electric vehicle charging here. We've got DC fast chargers that are hard commissioned into the infrastructure here. So if you've got your electric vehicle and you want to go up to the mountains, come through Canton.
You can charge up before you get there.
Absolutely.
Well, I want to thank everybody for coming on with us this morning and sharing about your wonderful community. I want to say that next week we will be focusing on Winder, and then the week after that we'll be in Dublin. So we're all over the state in the next couple weeks. I just want to shout out Canton. Sounds like a beautiful, beautiful place. I actually drove through your area. We didn't get to stop, but my husband and I just made a trip to Kentucky last week. And so we drove right through up 75, right through your area. So we need to get up there and hike those trails by the river and eat at the restaurants and see the mural and all those things. All right. Thanks so much, everybody. I really appreciate you coming on Community Focus with me and partially Commissioner Eccles.
Thank you.
Y'all have a great day.
Thank you.
Great.